like my regalia, everything I have has those colors, and so it's just kind of ingrained in me, right?
Yeah.
But it looks good. I mean, it's just, commercialability isn't always blue, and blue is not one of the better selling colors, but it looks so good.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not one of the better selling colors?
Not for us, no.
What's the best selling color?
Black, hands down, everything black. So we do a black piece, just about everything we do. And then we've done bone, like off-white, any type of like off-white, ecru, like bone color does really well. And then red does well.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
That's my bias though, because I freaking love blue.
I love blue, and I'll keep doing blue, but I always make sure I kind of hedge with something safe like black.
Do you like when you're ordering like the inventory, do you have to like base like you order more black than you order? That's
that's
how it goes down.
We do some analysis on our sales data, and so we've kind of built out some like formulas that really kind of give you like the spread
With relative accuracy?
based on like historical, yeah.
That's
So it helps us with our buying just to be efficient, so we're not buying too much of something but it could go wrong. Like sometimes the thing you don't think is gonna sell will fucking fly off the shelves, and you're like, oh fuck, we should have ordered more. So it's like there's a science to it, but like at the same time, like the consumer is sometimes just unpredictable.
That's so interesting. So, you're like constantly making bets on like little
I
mini
love
bets.
white t-shirts. White t-shirts don't sell as good. It's like, I don't know. This is weird. Like a lot of times stuff I like, the customers don't like. So I've had to learn some like hard lessons, like trying to like balance what I want to do with like still making shirts like commercially viable. But that's what I have. Like I've got a finance girl who does all that for me, so she kind of keeps me in check on some of that stuff.
She runs the analysis. Like, no, don't order 100 white shirts.
Yeah, we actually we have a consultant that he's like a professional buyer, and so he like did all this analysis on our historical data. And
that's crazy.
Basically built out like this whole like fucking model that we can plug numbers in, and like it just fucking spits out like your kind of like your allocations and stuff. So it's pretty crazy.
Who's your like? I'm not sure this will make it into the podcast, right? You can if you want, but who's like your target demographic? Like, who are you selling to?
I mean, obviously, like our people. It's always been like our community, right? Mm-hmm. I think obviously, like trying to grow a business, you want to like have some ability to break out, but I mean, I'm Native, and so everything I start out with is like something I would wear, or would this be something that would like appeal to me? Like that's how I started the brand, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, as of right now, like the Native community is our core customer. So, absolutely, like for us, by us, right?
Have you ever noticed a trend in the like who the non-Indigenous buyers are though? Like.
Not as much yet, but like they're starting, we're starting to see a lot more like, I think people outside the community. We have for a few years, but it's like people are kind of a little hesitant, because the whole, like the cultural appropriation thing has kind of created confusion for some people. And so they think that they don't want to appropriate anything, so they don't think they can wear something that's made by natives. And I'm like, you guys got it all twisted. Like,
yeah.
Like the whole reason we're selling it is for people to wear it.
What's the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation?
For me, like cultural appropriation it's like a headdress, like somebody wearing a fucking headdress, like making a phony ass headdress and wearing it at a festival. Whereas appreciation, it's like people like want to, I don't know, I feel like people want to buy and wear stuff that's unique and has like an authentic story to it and comes from somewhere that's authentic, and it's more than just like a piece of clothing. Like there's a whole story to the design, and like to me that's like appreciation.
Yeah.
People want something that has more than just a product.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's big in the beading world too.
Yeah.
Right? Like when somebody makes like earrings or something like that, and then they're like, well, if a non-Indigenous person comes up and wants to buy it,
yeah,
and then they sell it, and then that person goes to like where I work at Fraser Health and is wearing it, then someone talks to them about it and they're like, well, I was just trying to support the business. You know what I mean?
I feel like there's different viewpoints on stuff because, people will sell like ribbon skirts and like fucking white ladies will buy a ribbon skirt and want to wear it. And then there's some natives that just get all pissed off about it. And I'm like, as long as she bought it from a native that like is sewing and making it.
Yeah.
Like, supporting small business is good.
It's like buying a dream catcher from China.
Yeah, it's like, don't do that. Go find one at the powwow or something,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely like, I feel like there's a lot of education still that needs to happen in terms of like that crossover. We're obviously trying to like cross over, but just in my experience, like I feel like there's been a misconception that was created through cultural appropriation and that whole conversation. So,
well, what I like about Section 35 as a brand is that like I don't know how many people know what Section 35 actually is.
No,
probably not a lot, right?
No,
but also like anybody can wear this stuff as long as you're into streetwear.
Totally, yeah.
Like it completely crosses over.
Well, and that's like, that's kind of how I just fashion-wise I am. Like I wear all kinds of different shit, and so it's, a lot of the details are kind of hidden into stuff, and it's not so like, Pendleton patterns and that kind of stuff. Like that's just not me at all. So
yeah.
So it's, I think it is like a lot of people, we do have a lot of like non-Indigenous people, especially here too. Like we're, I think, the only Indigenous owned business, like, well, other than like the guys upstairs who run a cannabis company, but like we're the only Indigenous owned retail store in this space.
Yeah.
So like, unless it's natives coming to shop for us, a lot of the foot traffic is like non-Indigenous people, right? And there's a lot of non-Indigenous people that come in here and just buy stuff because like, oh, this is really nice, and we'll take your money.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Hey, Justin, thank you so much for, coming on the pod today. And this is just some protocol just to offer over. And like, bro, I appreciate it so much. And this is just to introduce my family to you. Like, my name's Riel. I'm Métis from the Huron Soto background. All my family's from Manitoba.
Yeah.
And like, in your own way, man, please introduce yourself.
Okay, thanks, bro. Justin Jacob Lewis. My ancestral name's Takes Many Coup. I'm from Samson Cree Nation, and my husband, a father, designer, artist, whatever you want to call it. And I was born and raised in Samson Cree Nation out in 6 Mile, and Skokiel First Nation is where I call home now. So.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
What was like? So you're from Samson, like. Where were you born? Like, what was day one for you like?
Let's see. I remember I was born in University Hospital up in Edmonton. That's where I have a twin brother. We were born up there in 1983, which is a long time ago. But as long as I can remember, I lived out in Musqueam and 6 Mile, which is my grandpa's old property. It was like all quarter sectioned up between all my aunts and uncles, and we lived on my grandpa and my granny's plot. He runs like right along Battle River, so it's a little area called Kawaskitik, which means bend in the river. So spent my childhood playing out on the land, and my dad was an Indian cowboy, so I rode horses, had cattle, and that was kind of my childhood, just traveling to the Indian rodeo circuit with him and just playing out in the bales and the bush down at the river, like everything. So that was kind of where I grew up.
Really? Mm-hmm. The cowboy circuit?
Yeah.
What was that like? Like,
it's still there. It's not as prominent as it was, but like Musqueam used to have rodeos all the time. Like if you go down to the Bloods, there's a ton of Indian cowboys down there. Like we just were horse people, right?
Yeah.
So it was cool. I got to travel, like all over the prairies with my dad to rodeos, like down into like New Mexico, where my mom is from, and that's how my dad met my mom. So my mom is from New Mexico originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he was down there for, I think, the Indian National Finals rodeo, and I don't know, he pulled her somehow, and convinced her to move back to Canada, and that's how they met. So I've got family on both sides of the medicine line, and I've spent like since I was a kid, going back and forth visiting my families and stuff. But
Oh, really?
Musquecheese has always been my home, and like I said, my parents still live there. You know, all my aunts that are still alive and uncles, they're all there. So like our family's all still there.
Sweet. Who was all on the property? Like you, mom, dad, granny, grandpa?
Yeah. So we lived on one house. It was me, my dad, my mom, my brother, and then my granny, up until she passed away, lived like, you know, like a 2-second walk across the yard. She had a house there, and so I grew up beside my grandparents. You go down the road 2 minutes, like my auntie was there. Up the other side of the road, my auntie's there. My uncle's up on the hill. You know, so there's that whole plot of land that, you know, used to belong to my grandpa. It was basically all my aunts and uncles and my cousins and stuff like that. So, and we used to have really big gatherings, you know, before my granny passed, like Christmas time, like, you know, everybody would come, and, you know, we don't do that much anymore, but it was really cool. So
Yeah, what a way to grow up, hey?
yeah, I miss those days. It was, you know, so much has changed, I think, in the world in general, but it felt a lot simpler.
What's like growing up in that way? Like what's like a lesson or a teaching that you had from like that you received growing up in that way that you still think about today?
There's probably a few. I know like my grandpa was a chief, you know, my uncles, you know, were on council. So like there was always that political side to our family. But just being raised, you know, understanding that you're a treaty Indian and that relationship, right, that we have as treaty Indians was something I was always, like my auntie's always, you know, you're a treaty Indian, don't ever forget that. Like you have rights, and this is, you know, our land and stuff. And so that's one of the things that I always, you know, I grew up hearing from my uncles and stuff like that. And then, you know, they all spoke the language. They're all fluent in the language, you know. Unfortunately, I'm not, you know, but I grew up hearing a lot of it. So I understand a lot of, you know, when people talk. And then just, you know, obviously being away from home, you know, like don't ever forget where you come from, you know. And so that's something that, you know, it's like I always represent Samson wherever I go. I'm proud to be from there. And so, you know, my auntie always used to say, you can't get to where you're going unless you know where you come from, right? And so I think those are probably two things that like I still think about today. So
Sick. What, like, was there ceremony going on around you growing up too?
yeah, I mean there were sundances, powwows, all of that stuff. Yeah. You know, I didn't start going to ceremony until I was a little bit older, but it was all over there. Yeah.
So what were you're growing up, what were the teen years like for you? Like still being in sports, like staying out of trouble?
Yeah, I mean, I played hockey all the way until I finished high school, but I started playing baseball, and I was, you know, me and my brother really liked baseball, and we were pretty good at it. And so I ended up getting to play on all the traveling teams out in Wetaskiwin, and then, you know, we kind of outgrew that and started playing up in Edmonton. And so I got to play, you know, kind of like all the AAA teams that were out there, and played for Team Alberta. And so like that was really like my teen years was playing sports, and it kept me out of a lot of trouble, you know. And so, and that was where I got recruited to go play baseball in California. And so yeah, so that was, you know, I don't think I would have gone to university if I didn't playing baseball was the only way for me to keep playing, right? Or I mean, going to school was the only way for me to keep playing baseball. And, you know, I didn't really have any plans to go to university, but that was the only way. And so I ended up doing that, and it kind of just opened up a whole world, you know, to me once I moved away. So
are you and your brother both playing baseball all the way up to AAA too? Like,
yeah.
Was it like a competitive environment between you and your brother? What was it like?
It was, you know, we are competitive. We're twins, right?
Yeah.
But we played on opposite sides of the diamond. So he was the first baseman, I was the third baseman. He's left-handed, I'm right-handed. So we're kind of very different, you know, players in a sense. But yeah, we always competed with each other to try to be the best. And even into the university, we went to the same school. And
wow.
And
they recruited a pair of brothers.
So
from that.
It was, you know, it was a fun time. You know, I got a lot of good memories from that. And, you know, my mom, you know, she was amazing. Like, she would work all day, come home, pick us up from school, and drive us to the city to go practice. Like almost every, like when I got to playing AAA, you know, like it was practice every day during the summer. And so she was driving us up to the city every day for practice. She'd like nap in the car while we practice, and then she'd drive us home, and then I'd have to go back to school the next day and like do it all over again. And she was a trooper, you know, through that whole thing. And then even on the weekends, traveling to tournaments, and then it was the same like for hockey in the winter, you know. So that was really what we did.
Yeah, it's hard to play sports unless you have parents to take you everywhere.
Yeah,
I guess.
and yeah, like I said, my mom was like amazing. I'm just gonna put
Put that
here.
wherever, man.
And yeah, I
This is
wouldn't have
your
got
studio.
to. Yeah, she was, you know, and so yeah, she was a trooper through all of that for us. So
Sweet. So are you like doing good in school, like just good enough to keep playing ball? Is that like?
it was just good enough to keep playing ball.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, even in high school, like I think I was just enough to graduate. I was pretty distracted in high school. You know, it was hard to focus, and in university, I was a little better, but just, you know, being able to play baseball was kind of the key thing. And then once I finished playing baseball, I think I had half a semester, and school just wasn't the same, not playing for the baseball team. And so I was like, I got to get out of here, you know. So, and I had really good grades my last semester because I wanted to finish school and start working and all that stuff. And I still have like these recurring nightmares of failing my last class, you know, because I was so like worried about that. And,
Yeah.
and I'll wake up and I'm like, oh, you finished school, you're good, you know. But I still have these recurring dreams of like failing or skipping too much class, and you go to the final and you don't remember anything, you know. So,
Yeah. What did you go to school for?
I started just kind of in like general because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to actually be to go into architecture because I like drafting and all of that stuff, and that was what I wanted to do when I first went to school. But I had baseball, so the baseball practice schedule and stuff didn't align with like the architecture program. So I took kind of an intro to business class, and it was kind of something that interested me and I understood it. And so after that, I went to business school. So.
And then are you like what, I don't know, like what was university like? Like do you have to like take a co-op or anything like that, do an internship down there, or do you just start working when you finish school?
I could have, I didn't though, because I just played baseball. That's all I really cared about.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I worked some retail, like I was telling you earlier. I did retail in the summer when I had some time. And then when I finished school, I started out in retail. And, but yeah, it was just, I didn't do any internships or anything like that. And you finish school and you think you know everything. And then when you start working in the professional world, you realize you don't know anything, you know, and if you didn't do an internship, it's hard. You know, people that do internships usually get better opportunities through those internships. And so I kind of had to start at the freaking bottom, you know, very bottom. And it was a good learning experience, but it really showed me like how important work experience is for people. And so, you know, it's nice to have a piece of paper, but you also got to have like kind of real skills, you know, and experience using those skills, because sometimes people just, you think you know everything and you don't. And that was how I was.
Yeah.
So
you get out as like, so what's your first job after school?
shoe sales, man.
Shoe sales.
Yeah, I was selling shoes, and then I hated it, but it was like I had to get a job, and my buddy was working in that place, and he got me a job selling shoes. And then after that, I took a job at a city finance department, working there, doing some like, you know, data entry and accounting, like basic type stuff. And what I really wanted to do is I wanted to get into real estate. And so I ended up moving back down to Southern California, and I got a job with like a commercial real estate securities company, like investments and stuff. And it was right, I think 2007, 2008, right before the like big real estate crash down there. And like everybody was losing their jobs. And here I was trying to find a job, and I managed to interview with, it was like kind of a small startup. Like this dude started his own real estate investment trust company, and he just interviewed me, and he's like, "You're probably not going to cost me a lot of money, are you?" And I was like, "Nope." And so he gave me a job, and
He said that to you?
yeah, he was like this, you know, and you know, he was awesome. He was really real eccentric, and I learned a lot from him just more now that I realize than when I was working for him, because I thought he was just kind of out there. He wore these like really expensive suits with these like alligator cowboy boots, and he had like, when he was a kid, he lost his eye, so he had like a glass eye, but he was like this big kind of real estate like dude, knew his shit and like knew how to make money. And yeah, that's what he said. He's like, "You're not going to cost me a lot of money, are you?" And I was like, "Nope." So I started out in his company, you know, while everybody else was getting laid off and all of that stuff. And you know, I didn't make a lot of money. I was like paycheck to paycheck, but I started out in basically the mailroom selling shipping prospectuses to like broker dealers and potential investors. And then from there, I kind of started with the marketing, helping out with the marketing and the business development team. And so I worked there for 3 years, you know, and I learned a ton of work. And even at the time, he was like, you know, I was like shipping stuff, and I was like, "What is this?" You know, but he's like, "Read what you're shipping." You know, he's like, "Always pay attention to what you're doing." He's like, "You're going to learn so much that way." And that always stuck with me, you know, is like how easy it is to educate yourself on stuff and being resourceful. And yeah, so that was kind of where that was probably my first real like professional job in the corporate world. And I learned a ton of stuff just being there and working with all the people. And, you know, I moved up, you know, in the company, but, you know, I think at one point I wanted to be an analyst, and he's like, "What do you want to do here?" And I was like, "I want to be an analyst," because I knew all the analysts there, and like they were cool. I used to go visit with them and all the sales guys, because it was such a small team. And and I ended up leaving though and moving back to Canada, so I never stuck it out. But you know, he gave me a chance, and I never forgot that. And you know, I think like a few years back, I remember seeing in the news he had sold that first offering and like the portfolio that he built, that we started on, for I don't know, like 2.4 billion or something, some kind of crazy.
Holy crap.
You know, so all the things he talked about that he was going to do, he ended up doing, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was a pretty eccentric dude, but I learned a lot just from like working closely, like, you know, being on the marketing side. We had to do webinars and all kinds of things, and we worked with him because it was, you know, so there's just like some invaluable lessons that I learned being there and working that closely with someone like that have really helped me in my business, you know, career. So
Any like lessons that stand out to you other than like the pay attention one? Like any other standouts? What did you notice about him, like other than just being eccentric? Like, did he do anything that was a little bit?
He was very emotional. Like I remember one time, but I'll just digress there. I remember he said, I can't remember what happened. He got mad one time at us, and like he said something. I can't remember what he said, but I was like ready to punch him. I was so pissed off because he demanded a lot from everybody, but he also took really good care of everybody, right? But he had the team around him that he had built, like he had a trusted group of like advisors that really helped him. And so that guy really noticed he had people who were specialists in certain things that he really relied on for stuff, right? And so understanding you can't do it all yourself. You know, you have to have a strong team and like people who kind of can fill in those little blind spots that you might have. And so that was something that I really noticed. And I even like in my own business now, like that's how I approach stuff, is like, you know, you're not the best at everything. And so just being real about those kinds of things. Yeah, there's probably a ton more you know, that I can't think of right now. So
What, so you're working there. Mm-hmm. I heard on another podcast that you actually got into graphic design first, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the story behind that? And are you learning graphic design while you're working there too, or?
Yeah, it's like I said, I was in the mailroom, but I also was working really closely with the graphic designer who was designing all the prospectuses, and you know, and I started helping build PowerPoint, so we were always working together on graphics. And he had the big Mac computer and worked on all the Adobe programs, and like he's the one who kind of showed me like basic graphic design skills, and just so I could kind of do some stuff there myself, but also I was just really interested in graphic design, and that was kind of where I started learning how just to do basic things in Illustrator and Photoshop. and like flipping logos and making funny graphics. Like that was the first place I started doing all of that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and and me and him got really close over it, and he was always getting grilled by the big boss man. We had a love-hate relationship with him.
Yeah.
But he was like he really kind of helped teach me those basics, and like I said, we were homies for all those years. So
You're trauma bonded.
yeah, so, and he was cool. He was like he was a little bit older, but he was like old skateboarder, and like so we had a lot of like things that we liked that were very similar, but he was just like 10, 15 years older than me, or and so he's probably as old as I am now when I was 26, 25, whatever.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it was a good time.
So then how does what's the next evolution after that? Like what's the gap between graphic design and then fashion?
It was kind of well, obviously I always liked fashion, like I probably spent all my money when I was in California on clothes, like that was something I always spent too much money on, right? So it was, and I ended up moving to Vancouver, and I was trying to move back home, and I ended up in Vancouver instead and working out here, and then I ended up buying a Mac computer and designing stuff on my own, and I just had this idea to start like redesigning some old hockey logos from like my reserve that I remember seeing growing up. And I had a friend who had a like screen print shop, and so I was really interested in how to make t-shirts and stuff like that. But I ended up like printing some of my own shirts and making some jerseys with those old logos and giving them to friends and selling them to some people, and like people really liked it, and it just kind of started right there. That was, I'm like, wow, there's like nobody doing a lot of this type of stuff, that like nostalgic kind of thing that reminds you of home, and those pieces that like you can't find. I always thought like old powwow shirts and things like are really hard to find, but if you see them, they're really cool. And so it was not a lot of clothing that like kind of spoke to me, that reminded me of home and represented where I come from, and that was kind of really like the genesis of the idea. I'm like, well, maybe there's room for a clothing company, and there wasn't a lot of native-owned clothing companies at the time. The only ones I knew of were down in the States.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of 2013-ish when I started kind of playing around with that.
So like were you just like getting a logo, or like getting some type of print, I guess, printing a batch out, selling them back to your like friends?
Yeah,
and
that was
family kind of
really
thing?
much how the first thing. I made some t-shirts and tank tops with like an old Hobima Hawks logo on it, and people, I think I have maybe one left that I saved for myself all these years, but like people they hadn't started using that logo again in our community for the hockey team, but I always remembered that hockey team growing up and watching them, and it's such a cool logo. It was back when like Musquetees used to be called Hobima, right? And it was like a H in the shape of a hawk, and it was this really cool logo, and so that was the first one I ever did. And then I was playing baseball in Vancouver, and one of the guys there that I knew, that I was friends with, had his own print shop. And so we redesigned the old Hobima Oilers logo, and it was like the Oilers logo that had Hobima in it instead of the Oilers, right? And we made some jerseys.
Oh, I bet those are just legendary.
Yeah,
now.
I think I still have one tucked away somewhere, but I gave it to all my friends because I'd go home and we'd go skating on the outdoor rink, and so I brought home one Christmas all these Oilers jerseys, Hobima Oilers jerseys, and we were skating around the rink.
Oh, I bet you people just love those.
Yeah, and I have a picture of it somewhere, and I made one for like all my closest friends, and I put their names on the back, and it was like, I think I only made like 6 of them or something like that, and they were all like custom for each of my friends. And yeah, that was really like the first couple of pieces that I made. And it just, from there I realized there was so much you could do, like if you have access to like production and understand it.
So like, I'm sorry, I think I missed a spot here, but like, what brings you back up to Canada? Are you like just missing family, want to come back home?
To be honest, I never planned on leaving, but I started dating a girl back home from my, and I was going to move home and kind of settle down with her. And I ended up getting a job in Vancouver instead. So I moved home for about a week and then got a one-way ticket to Vancouver and like ended up in Vancouver. And she ended up she didn't want to move to Vancouver. She had her family and all this stuff. And so that never worked out, but it was, that was kind of how I ended up coming back to Canada, because I didn't really plan on leaving, because like I got dual citizenship, so it was easy for me to stay down there and work. And I loved California. It was just such a cool lifestyle.
It's probably unreal to be in California,
Yeah,
early
that's what I said.
20s.
And, I was living in Orange County, like by the beach, and just everything was great, and then, you'd start the long distance relationship. And I was, it was hard too. I was really far from home. Like I started to feel really disconnected, from the community and like just who you are. And, I would go home. Sometimes I'd only go home once a year, right? And you go home for a week and like, I didn't want to leave. Like I see my parents getting older and I felt like I was missing so much. And so it kind of just, something, probably I was looking for a reason to go home, and I ended up, making that move. And obviously didn't end up the way I planned it, but, things work out the way they're supposed to,
So, okay, gotcha. And then, so what's the job that you get in Vancouver?
So I have a family out in Alberta, so they had like a consulting company, and so there was a lot of like regulatory consultation stuff. And so we were basically bringing like corporations to the table with First Nations, and the whole like duty to consult piece, and like impacts to rights and title. And so that was really where I got to sit and listen to like elders talk about, and that's where Section 35 ended up coming from, right? As I kept hearing all these elders telling these companies and these lawyers about Section 35 and their rights. And yeah, and so that was kind of what I was doing. And I didn't really like it. I ended up like finally just leaving. But I learned a lot, it kind of like reintroduced me back into like the struggle and like fighting for your rights and title and all these things that I grew up hearing my grandpa and that my grandpa did with, in his political stuff and all the people that came before us that they fought for, right? And so it kind of reintroduced me to a lot of that stuff. And, I'd been away for 10 years. I was in California. So it was really cool, but it was, it kind of just started, I was at a little bit older, and I just started really understanding like what was happening and seeing things that like just were not cool, and that was kind of where, like that like inner fight, that in Section 35, that like political stance came from. And it was like, you just see the government fucking people over and, what's happening to people. And so that was really the start of all of that too, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to see like you like take a experience from here, like an experience from there, experience from there, but and still fucking people over too.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because you see what happens in those boardrooms and how the government works and how the companies are so close to the government and how natives are viewed as like the problem, right? And like, how do you get them on side? It was like this really like manipulative, environment of people. And it just, at a certain point, like it just was so frustrating, and that was kind of, at that point I realized like I never want to be on that other side of the table, because I've seen what's happening, right? And how people view our communities and our people. And when we're just trying to make sure we, have clean water and our land isn't getting mowed down.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just, it helped me when I started working in Indigenous business to be able to sit at the table with these companies that were coming into communities, because I knew exactly how they operate and I could speak the same language as them, right? And
yeah.
So yeah, it was, it was a pretty interesting time. And it was like right after I think I Don't Know More and all of that stuff. So there was this huge surge of like uprising and like awakening in our communities, right? And so I think looking now, like how much has shifted and how much our people have really grown, it's been interesting to see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, that's so sad, but I mean, it's true. It's still happening today. Like,
It is, yeah.
I'll tell you some stories off camera of the crap I've seen lately here, but the you, like, when you leave, do you go to a different job, or you just like leave and like, I'm starting this thing up? Like, when is the idea, when are you
Well,
like,
I had
alright.
started kind of running it off the side of my desk for a little bit, but I ended up leaving, and I don't think I worked for, I don't know, maybe a year or two, a year and a half. I just focused on doing that full time, and it was still very early incubator stages. So at a certain point, like I had to go back and get a job because it wasn't really making me any money. Like, and but I kept doing it off the side of my desk. You know, I came back. I ended up moving out here, and I ended up working for one of the local communities out here and working for their business arm. And then during that time, I was still building the brand and trying to like make it happen, you know. And so I did that for a lot of years, you know, for and almost 5 years. I think I did it off the side of my desk there, and then eventually I decided to quit completely and do this full time. And it kind of just over that time, it grew so much that it needed to either like have somebody take the reins with it, or else it wasn't ever going to be anything, right?
Yeah.
And it was hard too, like, you know, like I always say, like I've almost been divorced a few times because I just was so focused on keeping the business and that like passion for that brand alive that I was just never like present at home, you know. Like I'd work all day and then I'd come home and I'd have to sit down and go through orders or pack orders or make sure stuff was happening, right? And it just became too much, and you know, I didn't ever want to like quit, you know. It was something I really loved to do, and so I finally got to a place where I was just like, okay, I got to make a decision here on which path I go down. And you know, it was kind of scary at the time because, you know, I'd moved up like in the business world. I was kind of an executive level position. I had good salary, good contract, and I left a lot of money on the table to do what I love, you know, and took a huge pay cut, but I wasn't happy. And so I was just I think I was miserable doing all that stuff. And yeah, you can make a ton of money, that's great, but if you're not happy, like you're just miserable, it doesn't really change anything. And so, you know, I was, you know, there was a couple times I almost quit too, because I realized I couldn't do both of them, you know. And like job security, when you have kids, you know, like you have to start thinking about stuff like that. And, you know, there was a couple times where I was like, I can't do this, you know, and like my wife was like, no, you can't quit. And I'm like, yeah, but you're so mad because I'm never even, you know, I'm always working. And, but I just, you know, I've managed to stick it out, and, you know, luckily like the business kept kind of getting momentum, and, you know, I felt like creatively I kept growing, and like I had this vision that I thought could happen, and, you know, and I just finally, I think it was almost 3 years ago, I just pulled chute and left my job and started to do this full time. And so,
Do you like how did you like raise the initial funding to like keep things growing, or were you just like making a batch, selling that batch, you know what I mean?
I mean, I spent a lot of my own money just because I was making such good money. I could afford to like pay for stuff, you know. And then like, you know, I had a business partner at the time. He had a print shop, and so we could do it all there.
Right.
But I mean, I lost track of how much money I sunk into this just to like keep it afloat. And like, but I also, you know, when you're working somewhere full time, you don't have the time to really like run the business properly. And so, you know, I really had no idea what was really happening underneath like the hood of the business. I was just, oh, it needs money. Oh, I got money. Okay, I'll just pay for this. And like, I wasn't really tracking a lot of that stuff. And so you know, along the way, we ended up getting a bookkeeper, and but there was just no checks and balances, in place. It was just kind of like, oh, we'll do this, and we didn't really have, like, there wasn't a business plan, there wasn't a strategy. It was just like I was just making shit, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna make this and release it. There wasn't like a strategy for the business. I just wanted to make cool shit. But at a certain point, I realized, like, okay, this is getting kind of expensive, and we need to kind of figure things out. So yeah, that's kind of.
Is that at the point where you're diving in full force?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first thing I did. Excuse me. When I quit, I brought on a girl who's still with me now. She's a CPA and like an auditor. She's very well versed, and she actually used to work for a manufacturer that we worked with. And I'd found out that she had left her job and just reached out. I was like, hey, what do you do? And she was doing freelance work. And so I was like, yeah, you want to come help me out? And I brought her on, and I made her do like a full profitability analysis on the business and really like take a look at everything, because I just had no idea like what we were paying, what our margins, needed to be. And we ended up, overhauling the business, because it was just like, I realized how many mistakes we had made along the way just because we weren't really running it properly.
Like what's one of them?
Just like we had so many like unpaid invoices that I had thought they had been paid. My business partner like didn't end up taking the money out to pay his business for him. So we had these like huge production bills that were just outstanding. So we were spending money on future POs that were supposed, before we were paying for like past invoicing, so we had this crazy amount of like unpaid things that, because it was my business partner and he was part of the business, like, nobody was chasing you for money. And, when we finally like went and did a full financial review, it was like we realized we owed a shitload of money to this shop, and
I'm gonna remember this story, Jim.
Yeah,
just so you know.
And all the money, all the money that we were supposed to pay from it, I spent it on like this big PO for another project, and so it was just this big mess of mistakes that, I think I doubt I'll make those mistakes ever again, because it was like we're still dealing with some of the legacy issues from that stuff, right? But it was good that I did that, but it was almost a little bit too late, because by the time we realized that the damage was already there. You can't undo that. So, but yeah, I mean, I always tell people don't do that. Mix in, put some some checks and balances for your finances there, right? So yeah, it was a big mistake. So
at what point, like after you leave, at what point are you like, holy crap, like this thing might work? You know what I mean? Like what point is that?
I mean, it was right around that time we'd started doing some wholesale, and like that's when we really started to see like a jump in revenues. And so I realized there was an opportunity, outside of just like direct to consumer, and wholesaling. And like our people spend so much money in the malls and all these places. And so, we started to see interest from retail, and we had interest for a while, but I just was like, we were never ready for it. And even when we started wholesaling, we weren't ready for it,
Yeah.
And, there's another lesson in that piece is, it's just having the financial means to like run a wholesale program is a whole nother business, but that was really where I started to see like, there's nothing like this out there. Like stores are looking for something interesting and unique. And you also have like a loyal customer base that supports the brand. And, that was kind of really where I was like, I think this could be like something legitimate, And so that's been kind of, the driver was like, okay, let's get this business like stabilized and running properly and see what we can do, right? And like it's just continued to grow, and with that growth, the ability to try new stuff, creatively has come from that too. So
when you're in this like fix it phase or this grow it phase, like how are you deciding what you should work on first? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. It's tough because I always want to do what I want to do, but like one of the things that I've just different guys from brands that like big brands that I've met along the way, like the one thing, you know, people always talk about is like your core, your like money making pieces, and you can't neglect that stuff, and that's the stuff that people always buy. For us, it's like the OG hoodie, the OG you know, like that class. Our very first logo that we ever released is still like one of our best sellers, and I'm so bored of it because it's just there.
Yeah.
I see it every season, you know, but people want that piece, and you know, and so I was always, the one thing I always heard was just like, you know, like you have to just, you can't neglect that stuff because that's what's paying your bills, and that's what's going to help allow you to do the cooler stuff, right? And
Yeah.
so, you know, so I always make sure that that stuff's there, and then, but I always start with like color palettes, and you know, obviously the seasons, like there's people wear different things in certain seasons. Like obviously winter is colder, summer is warmer. You know, like there's a lot of things that go into where I start, but so it's kind of just varies on the collection by collection.
Let's get into that. Like, what is your design process in general? You wake up, obviously you make yourself a cup of coffee, sit down.
It's changed a lot.
Pull up Illustrator.
Yeah, I usually right now I wake up and I have to respond to emails. It varies. Like now I'm designing 1 year, 12, I'm almost a year ahead before something ever releases, just because we're on that fashion calendar, which has taken me a long time to get there, because I always had a hard time designing something so far out, and then by the time it releases, you hate it, and I think probably everybody, designer that works in that, feels that way, because you see things that you don't like, or you were in a different place creatively and at the time, right? But I usually just, like, I have a huge design bank of stuff that I start, or I'll make, I have like this huge notes on my phone, like pictures of like inspiration, like there's just constant flow of like things that catch my eye and like inspire me, and I always just try to make notes of it. And so, obviously I'm starting to design for spring 26. So like there's some pieces that get cut and get pushed back, or like I earmark certain things that I want to make. And so it's just a mishmash of different things that kind of come together, and then usually at the end, like I'm struggling, that's where I struggle, is how do I bring this collection together to be cohesive, right? And so it's always just throwing things at the dartboard and whatever sticks, and then like I really start to massage it from there.
How do you know like what is trending a year in advance, or you just don't really know and you're just
there's all kinds of trends out there, like, but to be honest, I don't really follow.
Like whatever.
No, it's like, there's certain, different silhouettes and stuff like, are coming in, but in terms of like what's going to be popping, like it's kind of a roll of the dice, that's how I feel. And so I think some of the best creatives out there make their own trends. And so I think that's kind of how I look, is like, how can you do something that becomes your own thing, right? Instead of trying to follow the trends, like how can you be a trendsetter? And so like a lot of the guys that I really look up to as designers, like they're kind of trendsetters. Like they're doing their own thing, and people follow that, right?
Who are some designers that you look up to?
Like Ronnie Feig from Kith is like probably one of my favorites right now, and like everything he touches turns to gold, So he's one of my favorite. I really like Jerry Lorenzo until recently, when he kind of, he made some moccasins and a bunch of natives called him out, and I felt the way he responded to their like questioning who he is and where he's from, like his responses seemed really disrespectful, and so I was kind of bummed about that. But he was always somebody, Virgil Abloh, like some of these guys that have really like, Sponto was really cool with Born and Raised, rest in peace to him. But just people that have like carved their own lane and are doing something that's true to who they are, right? So yeah, those are, I guess, some of the mainstream people that I really like follow.
Do you have a favorite like other brand?
I have a freaking
A
ton
bunch?
of,
Bunch
yeah,
of
I
'em?
have a ton of, it's funny because a lot of people always ask me this and then I just draw a blank and then after I'm like, oh, these guys. Let's see I like what Willie Chavarria is doing right now. And he's like a Mexican designer out in New York. And I think I resonate with what he's doing because it's like really there's a lot of like his culture woven into what he's doing. And so like as a native designer, I really resonate with like him being true to who he is and his community. And so like he's somebody that I've been watching for a little while, and like this year he's just kind of blown up, and I think it's really cool what he's doing. And like Sponto from Born and Raised was somebody I really liked as a native designer, and he has like a bit of a like Mexicans, they had a bit of a Mexican flavor on his stuff, and they were just true to who they were, right? And like just in your face with it, and didn't really give a shit about anything. And I always thought that was cool, just being yourself,
Yeah. Is there a style that you wish that you could pull off personally that you just never try or just never go for? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's another really good question. I might have to come back to that.
Okay, come back to that.
Yeah,
come back to that. I feel like for me personally, sometimes for me, I feel like honestly, the streetwear is a little bit harder for me to pull off for some reason. But I don't know. Maybe I gotta buy a Section 35 hoodie after this, and
you can take one. I'll give you promo. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just I shouldn't say I can't wear it. I love tailoring, right? But
yeah.
It's like I don't do enough events where you can wear tailoring anymore. Like when I worked in the business world, it was easier to like you'd have events where you can wear a nice suit and stuff like that. Whereas, now I'm like, wear almost the same thing every day because it's just, I don't have to be anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I love, like good tailoring, like a nice suit. And there's just, I don't know, something about that. So.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. What's like, so like when do all of the collabs and the awards and all that stuff come through? Like when does that start coming through? What was your first collab?
My first collab was actually years ago. I did it with, his name is Santiago. He's a Chicago artist. And I don't know if you ever saw it, it was probably the first collaboration that really put us on the map. And he was a Chicago-based artist, and so we did this thing called Kill Mascot, Save the People.
Yeah.
And that was the very first collaboration was with him. I did two actually with him. There was one before that, but the Kill Mascots one was really the one that like got everybody's attention and people started following us from. So
I feel like if I were in your shoes, and like I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, if I like had this clothing company, it started as a side hustle, it comes off. Now I'm collaborating with somebody. I'd be like, holy crap, man! I'd be like, what's happening?
Well, to be honest, I mean, when I first started the brand, like collaborations was something I really wanted to do, anyways. Okay. And so I had this like vision for clothing that was like from our communities, and so I know that. I couldn't do everything because certain people come from different areas and stuff. And so it's like, how can you reach a different audience and create something that maybe comes from somewhere else? And so it's like, you find an artist. And so like, I just, through all the networking I did when I was building the brand, like I met so many artists, I was always going down to Indian Market in Santa Fe, and you just meet so many people and you stay in touch with them. And like, the cool thing is like most people are just wanting to support their people, and especially the art community. And I was just throwing Hail Marys to people like, hey, you want to collaborate on something? And that was a lot how like some of those landed, right? And not everybody doesn't work for everybody, but like some of my collaborations just came from me throwing a Hail Mary to like an artist that I liked.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's the story behind the Roots one?
That was Indigenous Fashion Arts, the big fashion thing they do in Toronto. So back in February of last year, Sage Paul had reached out and had said Roots was looking to collaborate with a native designer that was actually showing at the festival, and she thought, asked if I was interested because she thought it was a good fit. And it was weird because Roots was actually somebody I had on my radar as wanting to collaborate with, because I was like, they're like the most Canadian brand ever, and they've never like actually acknowledged native people, and at least in anything I've ever saw from them. And so she asked if I would be interested, and I was like, yeah, let's do it, and so that was kind of how that started. And they ended up reaching out, and it kind of went quiet for a while. Like they didn't, I thought it was just going to fall flat, so I just whatever. And then it ended up picking up steam, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we've got like a month to design something, and then it's got to go into production before June, right? And so luckily I'd kind of like schemed up some stuff to do anyways, just in advance when I got really hyped about it.
Yeah.
And so I ended up flying out to Toronto to their leather factory and meeting with the design team, pitched them what I wanted to do, and and that was kind of, it happened really fast. And
their leather is sick, hey?
Yeah. It's probably my favorite coat that I've designed, just like the colors and like the details that we put into it.
It sold out so fast too.
Yeah, so there, and I mean, and the thing is, like with them, like I didn't even care about the money, like for the collaboration. It was really like, I wanted to have that relationship with their leather factory, because it was about production and having that capability to bring something like that high quality, and made local, so it doesn't take forever. And so it was like really, a lot of times, sometimes it's about the network and the play on getting in with certain people.
Oh, right? Interesting.
Yeah. And so now, like I have a relationship with Roots, and if I need to do any co-branded stuff with their leather factory, it's basically a phone call away. And that was kind of what I'd always wanted, right? And like some of my favorite designers had worked with Roots, and I saw their Letterman coats, and so it just kind of lined up. It was something that I always wanted to do with them, and I got the opportunity to do it. And like the new line has 2 more coats that we did with them. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So.
Oh, sick.
And then I want to do and we've talked about doing more projects together. I haven't really we haven't gone anywhere with it, but I want to do another one next year because it's our 10-year anniversary. So I want to make a 10-year anniversary.
Oh, that's
Roots Letterman. So
sick.
So I've got
Letterman
some things.
Jacket?
Yeah. So.
That's gonna be nasty.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's how. And I mean, like I said, it was like super successful collaboration. It sold out really fast. I was a little worried because it's obviously the higher price point. Especially I try to keep pricing down as much as I can, just not to price out people. But it was just, it's the best coat you can buy. And $1,000 coat, and I was like, man, people are gonna be talking mad shit about how much it costs.
Yeah.
And there was only a few people that were upset about the price, and everybody else just was like, well, it's worth it, I'll take it. And so it sold out really fast, and we almost did a restock, but then we kind of just decided, let's not kill it. Let's, we'll come back and we'll do another project again, and we'll save some. So, and
play the drop one album and let it sit there for a long time game.
People still ask for it, and I had actually designed an alternate color version of it too that never made it to production, but I have a one of it that was, and I actually like it better than the black one because but it was a different, like a lighter color blues, a bunch of hues, and I should have brought it to show you guys. It's so sick, but there's only one of it, and I wish we would have sent that to production, but black's always a safe color for everybody, right? So,
right. So. That is sick.
Yeah.
When, on the Matriarch Movements podcast, listening to you, you told the story about New York Fashion Week and how, you brought in Indigenous enterprise out there, right?
Yeah.
And how, they were like, how long is this going to take kind of thing, before you get to the runway stuff? And you tell that story.
I'll start from the top, because it was trying to get our samples into the US was the worst part, was like the start of that journey. And I got to Vancouver and I had 5 suitcases, all the samples. Normally I don't declare samples sometimes, I just never declared them, but I had 5 suitcases by myself. I was like, okay, I'm going for 4 days. This might be kind of suspicious. So I declared them. Commercial goods, like you can't import commercial goods unless you have like a import bond or a carnet. Like there's paperwork you have to do when you're bringing commercial goods across the border if you're not going to sell them, because they think you're bringing commercial stuff, you're going to sell it. Anyways, they ended up telling me I can't bring my stuff away. I missed my flight. They told me to go to the land crossing, so I drove down to the border, tried to drive it across. I was going to go, turned away there, and then they finally told me you need to get an import bond to bring this stuff, or else we have to cut it up, right? Like there's 2 ways. It's either got to be like destroyed and cut up, or else you need to get the bond. And so it was like Friday afternoon. No way, it takes a couple of days to process everything, and my show was on Sunday. Luckily, like my manufacturer got me overnight labels, did all the commercial invoicing for all the pieces, and I had to go find a UPS store, buy a bunch of boxes, unpack, throw everything in a box, and then find the FedEx drop location before the cutoff time, right? And so I got everything somehow, like driving all over the lower mainland. Got it to the FedEx place for Saturday delivery, and then drove back to the airport to go catch my flight because I had a flight that night. Got to the airport, my flight to New York's canceled, so I have to stay the night. And then I get into my room and I see the package is delayed till Monday, which the show's on Sunday. So I'm like, great, now my stuff's not even going to be in New York. And so, I went to bed thinking, okay, damage control in the morning, what do I got to do? We're not going to be able to showcase, and we just spent all this money to be able to go to New York and do all this. Anyways, I wake up like 5:30 in the morning to catch my morning flight, and the package is out for delivery, and I'm like, holy shit, it's in New York.
Yeah.
My operations manager is there. I'm like, yo, the package is coming. Like, you need to be at the hotel and make sure it gets there. I'm hopping on a flight, get on my flight. About an hour from New York, we get rerouted to Toronto because the airports are all closed in New York because there's a huge storm. And I get to Toronto, and they're like, oh, we're just going to sit here for a bit until we get the clearance to go back. We sat on the tarmac for like an hour. Then they deplaned us, and then we sat there for another like hour and a half. And they started canceling all the flights to New York. And James Jones, Notorious Cree?
Yeah.
So was supposed to come to New York and dance for us too. He's in Toronto too. Like, he got turned away. His flight's canceled, and he's like, yo, if your flight's canceled, like, we're gonna rent a car and we'll drive all night. And I'm like, hell yeah, sounds good. And anyways, they ended up, miraculously, we got back on the plane, and I don't know, we had to be one of the only flights that left Toronto to New York that night. And so I got into Manhattan at like 1 in the morning, ready to do the show the next day. So it was crazy. And so
Sunday, you get there 1 in the morning on Sunday.
Yeah. So, I was like, dude, like something special better happen, because this was just like the most stressful 2 days. I had Yankees tickets I had to give away because I missed my flights, and I was too busy dealing with all this, like all these things I wanted to do in New York got kind of cut out. Anyways, we get to the show on show day, and like, Kenneth and all his crew are there, and I didn't really tell the show people we were bringing dancers, and I kind of told them right before. I was like, oh yeah, we got some dancers who are going to come perform before they open. They're like, okay, well, how much time do you need? And I'm like, I don't know, talk to them. And I think we're going to give them 30 seconds a spot. There was 4 of them, which is, no, that's not going to happen. Anyways, they were doing the sound check, and the DJ there really was like vibing with it. And so he just told them, he's like, you guys do your thing, and I'll just play. We'll let you guys do your thing. And so like they were all mad that we had kind of dropped this on them last minute because the production was pretty stiff, with the scheduling and stuff like that. And I just told them, I was like, you guys just go do your thing. Like, I'll deal with like any blowback because like, it has to be done right. And yeah, they just went out and like put if you ever see Kenneth and his crew, like the storytelling and like what they do is just insane. And it really just set the stage for the runway piece that we did after, right? And like, the people at the show were so amped after. They were like they weren't mad anymore because it just blew everybody away.
Yeah.
And like that room was packed, and you know, so many people in there had never seen anything like that. And you know, it was just, people were, you know, it's still one of the, probably my favorite show I've ever done. And like obviously Kenneth and those guys were such a big part of that. You know, it's like, I want to do that again, you know, on like that type of scale, and bring that to like people that have never seen that before. And like everybody there, like, you know, there was obviously like some of our people there, but there was so many non-Indigenous people there that had never seen that up close. And it just, you know, and it just really set the stage for like the whole presentation of the collection and stuff. So it was cool.
You can tell it was legendary. We'll link the video
Yeah.
to the in the description, but you can totally tell it was legendary. And if you like look at the crowd from the video, you can see a few people be like,
Yeah,
like,
it's
you
just
can,
like people, yeah, it was.
it must have been like at least like 3/4 of them's first interaction with prairie culture.
100%, yeah. Like, and I mean, I spent over an hour after talking to people, people just wanted to come up and talk about the show. And like, so many people had said they'd never seen anything like that, you know, and it was just, I figured like all the stress I had to deal with just to get my clothes there and just to get there, I knew something special had to come of it. And
Yeah.
so it was like the easiest show I ever did, you know. I was like, I already did all the hard work, you know, just to get here. And yeah, it was, you know, it's still by far one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
So,
And you brought all your own models too.
yeah, we had like, you know, Heather and just like some of like the dopest native models out there,
Yeah.
right? River, Heather, Philip, you know, like all these people
Yeah.
that showed up and, you know, gave, you know, some of them are walking for like Gucci and like
Yeah.
the biggest fashion houses, and their agencies were cool. They just gave us a deal on their time. But it was so important to have our own models with us, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, that was so legendary. That was so legendary. I was watching that, and when I was researching for this, I was like, oh, I was like at New York. I was like, this is crazy.
And the energy was like, that place was just insane. And yeah, it was just like, we went out after and everybody was just so hyped. You know, everybody was just so stoked. It was cool because it was backstage. It was just a bunch of natives hanging out, and like, we're all a bunch of resi kids, you know, and we're here in New York at New York Fashion Week, and
Yeah.
you just like blew everybody's minds, you know. So it was cool.
You have your own podcast too.
Dude, so what I want to do is like, I'd love to like do a documentary, like a fashion documentary. It's like my dream to be like, it'd be so cool to film like just the whole building, like the launch of JJL and like this whole like push that we're doing with it. Like it'd be so cool to show behind the scenes.
Well, we'll come film a day for you whenever you want,
Sick,
man.
yeah, because nobody sees like the behind the scenes and like the grind that goes into like this stuff, right? They only see what you put out on social media, and it's like highs and lows, and it's such a roller coaster ride. Mm-hmm. But there's just something really cool and fun about it. It's like but even just like the like community, like the native fashion community, and like the people that help you, and there's just so much more to it than people actually see, right?
Yeah. Well, these are Netflix approved cameras.
Yeah.
No, man, that would be sick. Nobody like, it's true. You know, like, I bet you probably just started taking weekends off, probably, if any at all.
I was working all up until you guys got here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of like I have so many deadlines coming up. So I work probably 6 or 7 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and like long days. But I don't feel like I'm working because I love what I do, like genuinely like love it. And
Yeah.
so like my wife has to peel me away from my computer, you know, like I have so much that I want to do that
Yeah.
it's just like I'm always on the grind.
Where did the grind come from? Like, did you watching your dad or anything like that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I was just raised to like work hard, you know, like that was always something that was instilled with me. Like my grandpa was a hard worker, and my dad was raised with that same kind of mentality. And, you know, and even in sports, you know, I was always told there's always going to be somebody just as good or better than you, but, you know, it's like hard work beats talent sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like, and I think now that I understand the business so much more and I see how hard it is to like make it work, like it's just drives me that much more because I really believe in what I do. And so that's just how I am. I'm a hard worker. Like I'm probably a workaholic, you know. It's like I always finding something to do, you know, on the brand. So I think it's just maybe like being, you know, like I have such high standards for myself that I'm always trying to like reach, and you'll probably never reach them, you know, but like that keeps me like motivated just to continue to try and improve, right?
Yeah.
So.
I didn't even notice people like walking by before. Like now I can't stop noticing.
Noticing them, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I feel that. Like even for us, like there's some stuff I don't know. There's some stuff can feel mundane when you're like doing it all the time. You know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, you're like, well, I did this to myself, so it's like, yeah.
Well, and I mean, I have days like even when I have to go to Vancouver, if like we have to shoot something, like, oh man, I hate going to the city right now because the traffic just sucks with all the construction. And there's days where I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to stay home. But then I always remind myself, you know, like you prayed, you know, there was a time when this was all you wanted to do and you prayed so hard that you would get an opportunity to do this full time, and now you do. And so you have no excuse, you know. And so that kind of, you know, you always remind myself of that when I'm feeling like unmotivated or like I'm procrastinating on something, right? And it just, and then I end up doing it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, it wasn't so hard, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I keep that in mind all the time.
Yeah. Okay, I have to ask you the interviewer standard question. Why did you choose to name this brand Section 35 other than your baseball number?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I always heard elders talking about Section 35, and so it was like that recognition and protection of rights and treaty rights in this country, right? And so there was this political mindset to it, and like being able to like represent people, and like, you know, obviously there was a lot of cool, like it's a cool talking point for the brand. Obviously the baseball number 35, but it just sounded cool too, you know, in terms of like having a meaning and something that was like, you know, an education point, you know, for people that didn't know what that was, but also like hearing like actual old people talk about that.
And Siri.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just, there was a lot of like elements, and then just like I said, from a marketing standpoint, like you can play with numbers, and like there's just a lot of like really cool things that I thought you could do with it, and it sounded cool just in general. Like, you know, for finding a brand name is hard, you know, creating logos is hard. There's so many things that just seem to like come together for it that, you know, I just, you know, I don't know, I just feel like it was something happened at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, and so.
What's the long-term vision, do you think, for Section 35?
Oh man, I've had so many long-term visions, but you know, I think I want to be, I don't know, I feel like there's room to grow much bigger, and I don't know what that looks like yet. Obviously, like we're launching a new brand, but like there's not there's not an Indigenous fashion house out there, right? And like something that really represents our community and our people at the highest levels. And like, I think our people and our community's work deserves to be up there. And, you know, and I think that's kind of where I see things going. And, you know, I don't know, maybe you add brands to the portfolio or something, you know, like you see these big companies that can do that, but like nobody's doing it from like our lens and our perspective and the values and the things that, you know, our communities have. And so I think trying to build something at that level, but also trying to like maintain those values and who we are, right? So I think that's probably like the $1 million question, but I think there's room for growth there. So, and I think just to put our work on the world stage, right? Like next to like the biggest brands, I think our stuff deserves to be up there.
Yeah. Yeah, that got me fired up. That got me fired up. Agree. Is there any room for any like, any flannel boy, any flannel boy brands?
Yeah, actually, I am definitely like, I'm always trying to figure out how to fit stuff in because like I feel like every collection has different aesthetics that I work with. But I mean, flannel is coming back in too, and oddly enough, I made a flannel shirt jacket like a couple of years back, and I still wear mine. It's like falling apart, but like I don't know. For me, I grew up in the country, right? So like a nice red and blue flannel like speaks to me sometimes, and I love it. So I'm always trying to figure out how can you do something like unique with it, though, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I guess there's a fine line, but between like I mean, you see some of the stuff that like the couture people do, and like there's just some crazy clothes out there, right? But like still trying to make something that people can wear every day, and not too far out there,
Yeah.
But then again, I also want to make crazy shit too sometimes. So
like, can I ask you a question about the fashion industry that I never quite understood?
Yeah.
Like on the runway where it's like where they're like introducing the line, but it's like so extravagant. And then when the clothes actually come out, they're like more wearable for the everyday. Like, is that how that works? I'm just checking this out for myself right now. You know what I'm trying to say? You know what I'm talking about?
Do you mean like in terms of like how they showcase, like it comes out crazy?
Yes. And then when the line comes out, like if Dior is on the fashion stage, it's crazier.
Yeah.
And then when it comes out, it's still Dior at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's like just hype, right?
Yeah.
I think so much of, and I mean, fashion shows, I mean, at the foundation, I think like a fashion show is also supposed to just be like to showcase to buyers and stuff like that. But it's become its own kind of art form, I think. And so who can do the most extravagant or crazy, display? But at the same time, like, I think some of the stuff, like if you're presenting ready to wear, it still has to be something that people are going to want to buy and wear, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, like a couture show is going to be much different than, a ready-to-wear show. Like couture is usually like the crazy one-of-one stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
But, like a Dior or Gucci, they're never going to stray too far from their DNA. And like the thing that, obviously you see, these creative directors that come in that are doing pretty crazy stuff with it, but they still got to be like commercially viable, I think, right?
Yeah.
So, but a lot of it's just hype. There's in social media and like the world we live in has like created this place where everybody's trying to do the wildest thing to get views and attention, right? And it's like that, I guess, converts to dollars too, but you gotta have, just spit all over, but you gotta have a lot of money to do all that, right?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, we don't have a lot of money, so it's like, I think if you can let your clothes and, like do the talking, and if you have, like I said, what we did in New York, like our stuff, we can put on a fucking show. Like we know, our people know how to celebrate.
Oh yeah.
So you just got to be creative, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
So
creative and resourceful.
Yeah.
What excites you about the new brand, Justin Jacob?
I mean, for me, it's like this. I mean, doing Section 35, I love Section, but when you're doing something for so long, it's like it's created its own kind of DNA, and like you can't stray too far from that, right? Whereas this other line, like it really kind of opens up my ability to like really go wherever I want to go,
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a whole nother area that I've wanted to design in that I just haven't been able to with Section 35 and the streetwear line, and so I think it's just, where it's going creatively, where I see it going is just like, it's just a whole nother level for me to like, fill that creative, that, I guess that drive creatively that you have to just make stuff and make unique pieces. So.
Yeah. It's menswear, right?
Yeah.
Why menswear?
Well, I mean, I identify with I mean, like I said, I love tailoring. Like
Yeah.
I've been a consumer of menswear, but I also don't think that there, at least that I'm aware of, I don't know very much Indigenous design menswear that, at least it speaks to me, right? That I've seen, and like it's kind of like when I started Section, I felt like there was a need for something like that out there, and there's no Indigenous men's luxury brands out there. I'm almost positive.
I'm pretty positive too.
But it's like, why can't our people do that too, right? And like I said, our work deserves to be at like the highest level. So why can't you pursue that? So I think I feel like I have something to offer in that space too, and through my lens. And I don't know, it's just something that kind of came up, and it feels like I'm stepping into like a whole new place creatively for myself. I think like this year and into next year, like I finally feel like I have kind of the creative direction that I've been chasing all these years. Like I feel like I'm okay now. I know like what my thing is and where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I feel like for so many years you kind of like bounce all over the place, and like I look back at a lot of stuff and maybe no direction, or like just you haven't quite figured out who you are creatively yet. And I feel like now I'm finally like getting there. And so I think like later this year and into next year, like I'm really excited about the work that's coming, that I'm like working on right now. And so I think the men's line is going to be something like completely like next level for me. So
sick.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about it. So
how do you want someone to like feel when they like put something on for the first time?
I mean, obviously like the quality, like I want, when you touch something, right, like it needs to feel legit. But I think, I don't know, man, it's like you have to feel good, right? Like you got to feel like, dope, this is like,
yeah.
It's like if you put on that Roots coat, you put it on and you're like, yo, this is sick. Like that's how I want. That's how you should feel if you're spending something like that on clothes, And
yeah.
I've spent money on some really nice stuff, and like if it really hits, like you love it, and it lasts forever, right? You're never gonna get rid of it. And so like I want to make clothes that people are gonna have for a long time. So
what's like would you ever collaborate with this brand too? Like if so, like who would be a dream collab?
Yeah, I mean 100% I would. I think it's weird because I haven't really,
might not be in that space yet, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, I don't have aspirations for collabing with big fashion houses. I mean, obviously if like that opportunity came up, I would obviously hear what they'd have to say. But part of like that whole ethos, like I really believe that we can do this ourselves, like as Indigenous people, and we don't need to collaborate with big companies to do some of this stuff ourselves, right? Obviously like resources and companies bring that, but very rarely do the artists actually get compensated fairly for those types of collaboration. It's like, to me, I think sometimes it's just great to get your name up beside those people. And every artist is different in how they approach that stuff, but I really think that the real challenge is like doing it ourselves and like putting yourself up next to those brands. And I think if you do that and you do it well, like opportunities will come your way. But I don't know, I just don't have any. I'd probably do a footwear collaboration, but then again, that's almost more like streetwear, and so I don't know. I think everything that I want to do with that brand is something I want to do myself.
Right.
I mean, that's why it's got my name on it, It's like, I want to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Fair enough. What's like a fashion mistake do you think that's often made in menswear?
this is a good one. I didn't see this one on your paper.
Let me see if I can think of one. While you're thinking,
Yeah.
I used to work at this company called Indigenous.
Yeah.
Like
Familiar with them.
the made-to-measure suits and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And we used to like bring in a bunch of guys and teach them how to wear suits and then measure them up and then bust them out. So like I remember like that's where like my first exposure to like even fashion ever even came from.
Yeah.
And then I remember just thinking like, holy crap, there's like so much expression in this world that you have no idea. Because
Yeah.
like when I got into making suits for them, I was like, oh, like this is for business people. You know, they come in, whatever. And then I was like, oh man, I was like, why would I ever wear a navy suit ever again? Like I'll just wear burgundy
Yeah.
the rest of my life or something like that. But yeah, no. I remember like, what's a fashion mistake? For me, like one that like really pops out at me, especially if you're wearing like, I don't know, like suit pants or something like that, is like too heavy of a break, you know what I mean? Which is like, maybe that's like more of a personal preference thing for me. Like I'm just a half break guy myself, but you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. For me, I think it's probably skinny pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, skinny. Even like you see, like suiting has like not as much anymore, but like there's just something about skinny pants and like I mean people have different shaped legs and stuff like that, but it just I don't know. I don't find it flattering for men's clothing, right? Like it just kind of throws the balance off of everything, right? And no offense. But I say that because I have skinny legs though, right?
Yeah.
Like if I wear skinny pants, it just doesn't look good on me.
Yeah.
But I really like
Good save. Good save. Just kidding.
But I'm talking in sense of like tailoring, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't think skinny pants looks good with a suit. You know, I think you need to have like a straight leg or a little bit of a flare, like not too much of a flare, because I think too much of a flare, you know, you get into like that disco vibe.
Yeah,
So there's a fine line, I think, you know, through that.
For sure. No, like especially in like the suiting world, I guess. Like I remember like I used to have like we're getting married all the time, and the suit would come in perfect out of the box. Like just not like everyone wants it to be a little form fitting. I get that,
Yeah.
right? But like people like this guy's wife came up and he's like, no, like take it in. I'm like, listen, like if I take it in anymore, like this, you're not dancing with him.
Buttons popping.
Yeah, like you're not dancing with him at your wedding. Like shit's gonna rip. You know what I mean? And but that was like every single day. Yeah.
It's weird, and you see, it's funny because I find like fashion is very cyclical, and like you see things coming back in now that were in 20, 30 years ago, and it's like things always seem to kind of come back. And I don't know, it's just like I look at old pictures of like my ancestors and like how they're dressed in these like big wool coats with these like 3-piece suits and like these big hats and like, you know, their town clothes, and it's like there's just something like really cool about how like the older generation used to dress up, you know, and I feel like that kind of vibe is starting to come back.
Yeah.
And so I was, you know, when I started designing like coats and stuff, I was looking at these photos of like my ancestors and like these big pea coats and vests, you know, with the bandana and like big felt hat, you know, like all these really cool vibes in these old photos that you see, and I'm like, yeah, like our people knew how to dress, you know.
Oh, totally.
And to me it's like if you look at our regalia, it's the same. Like, dude, like we've been designers for a long time, you know, like our people knew how to dress and design and work with color and all these things. And so, you know, I think this generation is, you know, of creatives and designers that, you know, me and everybody else that's doing it is just an extension of like what our grandmas and you know, our grannies used to do years ago. So it's just in the modern day.
We had this Métis beater come on actually, and she told us that your, like, however beaded your jacket was, like I don't know, showed some type of status or whatever, like you're some demonstration of wealth, or I don't know, but but also like if you were to like, I don't know, like be disloyal to the band at the time or whatever like that, or on the hunt, they would cut your jacket up, and that was like the worst thing that could happen.
It's like a motorcycle club, right? They take your cut.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, I believe it. I mean, like like the handiwork that goes into like beads and stuff like that. Even before beads, like quill work and this stuff. Like, I don't know, man. Our people were just like, it was just such a representation of like who we are, and like, you see like what was woven into it, like this reflection of the landscape and like where we come from. And yeah, it's cool looking at really old stuff like that. And beadwork is just, the details and intricacies, and like the way people work with colors is so cool.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what I wish I had better work with color. Like you said, I get stuck on colors because I see these beadwork and the palettes some of these beadworkers do, and I'm like, wow, where did you like come up with that color? That color combo, And I have color deficiencies in my eyes too, so like I struggle with certain colors in general. Like I'll mock something up and it's like not even the color I think it is. So yeah, I think everybody sees color differently, right?
Like the other thing that always strikes me as interesting with the beadwork that was like at least modern day is like, I don't know what the word for, maybe it's like texture of the bead, maybe that's it, but like the degree of shine or the degree of matte. And then some people are really good, like really mixing like a good, like the shine and the matte with them together. I don't know, man, it's
when
wild.
You're starting, and you start to see some of the beaters now working with like almost like 3D texture, right? Like, and raising, and like, it's like there's Summer is her name. She's done some work for me in the past, but she does these like 3-dimensional like medallions, and it's just I had her do when the Kill Mascots logo when we did that collection, and like, oh, it's crazy, like the feathers raised up, like there's just texture, so many different levels of texture that she worked with, and it was just like, dude, some of the people out there that are doing beadwork are just so creative. So
let's get into your family a little bit here. Like what has being a dad done for you as a person and as a man, would you say?
It's definitely made me a better person. I think when you have kids, you realize how selfish you are with your time and everything, and when you have a kid, like, you got to take care of it, you know? And so I realized like how selfish I was before I had kids. Like, I didn't have a care in the world, I did whatever I want, whenever I want. Once you have a kid, that kind of changes. But not, it changes for the good though. Like, it kind of, it helped me kind of become, I guess it probably helped me grow up, I think, in a sense. Like, you learn to like take care of it, take care of your kid, and you have to be responsible, right? And I don't think I was very responsible when I was younger. I was pretty wild and didn't have a care in the world. And once you have a kid, it just, that changes really fast. And I think it's like you have this inherent like drive to take care and raise your kid properly, and like all the things that like I didn't get, or teachings that I didn't get, like I want to make sure my kids have those, and the values and like who we are, make sure that like we're passing on what was passed on to us. And so those were things that like really became more clear, and I understood better. I think I understood my parents and my grandparents so much more once I had kids, and I was like, now I understand what they were talking about, And so it's definitely helped me grow up. I think professionally, like, it motivates me, like, so this is how I take care of my family, and so I have to make it work, so like there's that constant drive to like work hard and make sure things are going okay. And then just, I think creatively too, like watching my son, like he watches what I do, and then I watch him, and he's like trying to be like me creatively, he wants to design shirts now, and it's really cool to have that, like to see like the impact you have on like the next generation and your kids, right? And so yeah, there's just some really cool things that have like come out of being a dad. And I always wanted to be a dad, And I don't think I could picture myself not having kids anymore. It's just like once you have kids, that's it. You know?
Yeah.
Like that's like the best thing ever, I think.
Did you get dad powers?
No, I got a dad bod. That's about it. Definitely no dad powers.
That was good. What, like, how are you taking care of yourself while you're working 7 days a week, grinding all the time?
I started racing war canoes with my wife and her family last summer, and that was probably like one of the first things I've done in a long time to like give myself some care, like self-care, because I work so much. So that's like the physical activity, but it's like, you know, when you're out on the water, like I'm not even thinking about work, you know, because there's so much more to think about when you're on the water. And, you know, just the physical part of it, like being an athlete, like it reminded me of like the team atmosphere and like that competitive drive. And like I hadn't done anything that competitive since I quit playing baseball, right?
Yeah.
And it just reminded me how much I enjoyed that. And just like the physical component of it too was so good for your mental health and like your spirit, you know, like you're on the water and it's almost, you know, like you're praying when you're out there and like you're pushing your body to the limits, you know, like I was so out of shape, you know, I think when I started last year, and like I said, I had the dad bod, but like my dad bod evaporated after, you know, canoeing and training all summer. But it's just, you know, like that's something that is new for me, that like I'm glad that I did it, because it is kind of like a bit of self-care for me in that sense. I get a lot out of it. My kids like are really passionate about it too, so it gives me an opportunity to bond with my family like over something, because we don't like a lot of the same things, you know, like especially like I come from over the mountains and things are so different there, you know, like I like hockey. A lot of people out here don't play hockey, you know, like musically, you know, these things, like I have very unique tastes and stuff, and my kids don't like a lot of the stuff I like, you know, but the one thing that we can connect and like bond over is like war canoe racing, and so that feeds my spirit a lot right now. So.
What's the story of your first race?
Yeah, it was Kate's Park, in North Van, and it's probably one of the roughest races all year, because it's right underneath the bridge and like the big cruise ships are coming by. And I'd been training, but you don't get on the race team right away. Like you're kind of a rookie, so nobody wants you on the canoe because you probably tip them, right? And
yeah.
So I was always just like, I help carry the canoes and whatever. And I think I had gone up to go have a smoke because I was like, I'm not racing. I'm just gonna go have a cigarette. And came back down and they're like, get on, and I'm like, what the fuck? And like, you guys could have told me, you know. I didn't even have a paddle. They just threw me a paddle and they're like, get in. And that was kind of my first race, and it was like the biggest wakes and waves race. And you know, I'd been training. I'd never raced a big canoe yet, and so, but I was ready. I was pretty amped for it, and you know, I think we finished second, so we did pretty good. But I was like gassed, you know, like you don't realize how, you know, even though you're training and stuff, but like once you get in a race, like you're full bore like the whole time, right? And yeah, and so I thought I was gonna black out like on that last leg of it, you know, and we got stuck it was like the tide was going out, so like if you got too far out in the open water, like you just sink like quicksand. And yeah, so I was like huffing, you know, you see stars when you get off the canoe, you're just like, oh fuck.
Really?
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know, it's like you push yourself, and you kind of, if you have a strong mind, like if you play sports and stuff, like you realize how important your mind is, and so you can kind of push yourself through it, and you almost kind of meditate, right? Like when you get to the point where you think you can't do it anymore, you just kind of, I don't know, your mind goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you just push through it, you know. And so yeah, I had a couple of those races, you know, and just, I don't know, your body, like, the body's amazing, man. It, you know, it gets in shape pretty fast when you push it, you know. And so, like I said, I evaporated the dad bod, you know, last summer, and like I think I lost like 25 pounds or something like that. Like,
nice.
It's like, oh, nice. Oh my cool clothes fit me again. So, but yeah, it's just, it's fun. And so, this year I'll probably race a lot more. I think I didn't race as much last year because it was like my rookie year. I'm still kind of a rookie though, but I can at least not tip a canoe now.
What where in the canoe do you sit as a rookie? Like, are you right in the middle?
Back.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Because in the middle you have to slide. So like there's on the big canoes, right? There's people on each side, and the skipper calls for switches, and you have to switch sides.
One person stands up, one person slides under?
Well, no, everybody's on their own seat, but you have to literally like push yourself over, right? So you switch, you slide over, and like obviously the canoe's wider in the middle, so you have to slide a lot farther. And so like there's usually there's people that slide really well that sit in the middle, because if people don't slide on time, the canoe will tip. Like they're not wide, they're pretty like narrow canoes, and they're really tippy if the balance is off. And I mean, if you blow a switch, like my second race, I blew a switch one time and we almost tipped, and like everybody on there's like been canoeing their whole life, but I spaced out for a second, and next thing you know, everyone's sliding, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh shit, and we almost went over. But then you take on water, and then your canoe's heavy, and it's actually like pretty crazy, like how intense it is, and like how perfect everybody has to work together to like make that canoe go. So there's a lot of lessons in it, and like I said, you have to really focus, and if you don't, like,
that sounds intense.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You have to come check it out if I'll let you know when there's.
I'll come through.
Yeah, but I mean, I grew up in the prairie, so like being on the water was so foreign to me.
Is there a horse race around here?
Yeah, that's why I was like, they have all their canoes are sitting on wooden horses, and I'm like, dude, I grew up on different horses. So, but yeah, it's been fun though. Like I really enjoyed it, and I spent like up until the end of the last season, like just once our club stopped traveling, there's still races that go into the end of summer, and me and the kids and my wife just put together a small crew of us, and we just went to races still. And you just find crews that need pickups and stuff, and I probably learned more just doing that, like without the pressure of like being on the club and stuff, and just getting to race. And I was racing with a bunch of old guys, so it was like we weren't winning anything, but I was getting to race every day, so like just that alone was so fun. And like, we had one race where we tipped on the first switch. Like there's this, you're racing on canoes like you've never been on before, so everything feels different. So
how is like the whole canoe keeping time? Like, is there a drum or something like that, or is someone just calling it?
There's the person who sits on the bow kind of like sets the stroke. So like everybody's on each side, so you're basically watching the person stroke in front of you.
Oh, you're just matching pace.
And then the skipper, when it's time to switch, like he'll call out, there's a call, and it's usually like call and then 1, 2, and then you switch, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's all time, but you have to focus on it, and if someone's out of time, like you can tell, right? And so you basically just keep your eye on the person in front of you and follow what they're doing.
That's intense.
Yeah.
And then like if you're having a hard time and you're just like on that one side, that's rough actually.
Yeah, it's way harder than you think.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more that goes. Like I said, when I blew the one switch, I was like kind of looking around. You're not supposed to really look around, but I was watching the guys we were trying to catch up to, and then all of a sudden I look, everyone's switching, and I'm like, oh no. And so it just takes like one little like lapse and like focus to like
you gotta be dialed in there.
Yeah, and like throws off the canoe, and then you don't win, or then you like tip or something like that. And it happens all the time. Like you see people tip canoes, and like there's definitely like a skill and like focus that you need to have, and then obviously the physical conditioning and stuff too. So
dang.
Yeah.
When you get out to board snowboarding?
I've been out like 4 times this year, so I was going out quite a bit before I went off to Europe. So yeah, I try to go as much as I can. I don't obviously get to go as much as I used to, but
when did you pick that up?
I must have been 18 when I really started doing it all the time. It's like when I got to college, like I'd been out a couple times when I was in high school, but when I got to university, like I just was like, I want to learn to do this all the time. And so I just bought a snowboard and I've been riding ever since. So, and you know, like when I finished playing baseball, that was kind of what I did. That was my thing, you know, in the winter. And I used to just want to move to the mountains and be a lifty.
Yeah.
Obviously that never happened, but I don't know, there's something about being in the mountains and riding. It's really cool.
Peaceful.
Yeah.
Definitely peaceful.
I'd definitely do a snowboard collaboration. That's like something I really want to do.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
So.
We're coming down to the last few questions here. We're having a good time. Are you having fun?
Yeah.
It's pretty fun, hey?
Really, we talk forever.
Yeah. What one thing I really wanted to ask you was, because like learning about your story, you've worked in the corporate world. Now you're an entrepreneur and Native Indigenous, right? What do you think is one thing that the corporate world is missing from like an Indigenous worldview? You know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm. I think the like community component, right? I think corporate is so, I think bottom line driven, right? It's like profits over people, right? And I think from, at least in my opinion, and like I can only speak for myself, but I think like our community, like when we look at, you know, success and like, you know, like our community holds us accountable first, right? And like when we think about what we're doing, it's like, how are we able to benefit others and our people around us? And I don't know if like the corporate world does that. I mean, they obviously say they do a lot of times, but at the end of the, you know, it's about money and profits. And I think our people in our community just think differently like that. And it's like I said, I think community is the thing that really doesn't exist in the corporate world, right? In the sense of the way community does in our communities. So.
Agree. Major agree. What what do you want the kid that's, you know, back at Samson right now watching this, what do you want them to take away?
It's funny, I've been asked this question so many times too, and I don't know, I think it's just like to have the confidence in yourself to pursue something that you dream about, like to chase, you know, it sounds kind of cliche, but like I think just the ability to pursue something, like it takes so much confidence. And I remember when I was trying to launch the brand, like I lacked confidence, and even throughout my journey, like I realized how much lack of confidence I've had through this. You doubt yourself and it holds you back, right? And I think being able to be confident in yourself to chase something that maybe somebody thinks is stupid or might not understand. And you know, like I remember when I first started, like not very many people actually took me serious, I think, when I was like, oh, I'm gonna start a clothing company, you know. But the ones that did, you know, believe in me, like they're still there, and they, you know, and I still remember like those conversations that they had, and like, I think you have something, you know, like I remember those people, and like it was just, you just needed somebody to believe in you, right? And it's because maybe you don't believe in yourself at that time, but you know, I think anything, like it's possible if you want to do it, right? And if you do, like you really have to give it everything, right? You can't half-ass anything. And that was something my dad always taught, is like no half-assing. You can't half-ass anything, and that's probably why I'm kind of a workaholic, you know.
Yeah.
But I think just, you know, like growing up on the reserve, and you know, like a lot of the stuff that I do now, like I didn't see anybody doing this when I was growing up. And like, you know, people talk about representation and stuff, and it's so important, but I also think like having the belief in yourself and that you can like go outside of those reservation boundaries. You can always come home, right? Home's always going to be there, and it's always with you wherever you go. But, you know, like just take a chance on yourself. I think that's it. In all the rambling I just did, it's really like take a chance on yourself, you know, like you never know what can happen. So
True. What do you want like the youth or this next generation that's coming into adulthood right now, what do you want them to focus on and work on for the community?
In what, I guess I can ask a question back. In what sense?
In any sense.
Any sense? Okay.
Terrible. You've been answering all my questions. Great here today. I just
What do we want? Okay, so what
it could be anything. Like it could be like language preservation,
Yeah.
whatever. It doesn't matter.
I definitely think language is important. It's crazy because I see this next generation who has so much more like interest in culture than when I was growing up, and even like ceremony and like songs and all these things. And I feel like they're already heads above my generation because they're not ashamed. They're not, like growing up in, a place that's racist and stuff. Like you become kind of ashamed of being Native because people are picking on you. And I feel like this next generation, like being able to raise our children with that like pride and that like sense of identity is just, it's part of healing in our community, right? And I think our kids, I don't think we need to tell them anything. I need them just to keep doing what you're doing, right? Like from what some of the kids I see, like it's pretty incredible, like singing their songs, and like there's kids that understand their language, and like there's just so much going, I think, right? And I just say keep doing that, like I think you always want to leave, like the next generation in a better place than when you were there, right? And I feel like there's a big shift happening with the next generation, I think on a lot of fronts. That's, at some point, like, I'm not going to be that cool, but there's going to be this whole other generation that's like really next level, right? And I think, yeah, keep doing that.
Ahkameyimok.
Yes, exactly. That's it, exactly.
What does ceremony mean to you?
I feel like ceremony to me is really, it's like grounding, right? It's really about like, you kind of realize that you're a part of something bigger than you, right? And it's like a place for you to go back and you ground yourself there, and you're reminded of the people that came before you and like those responsibilities that we have as natives. It really always brings me back to like the foundation of who we are, right? And it's easy to kind of forget a lot of that stuff in the everyday hustle and bustle, but like making time for that is like, it always brings you back to who we are as people, and the healing that we need to continue to do, right? So it's definitely like grounding and healing and just being true to like who you are and never forgetting that. I think it's like, I don't know, I think everybody has their own experiences in ceremony and like but I think everybody there for the same reason, right? And I think it's part of who we are.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Is there any question that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask you?
I don't. I feel like I have, because I have so many stories, it's always just like, you just need to like trigger something and I'll be like, oh yeah, I got this one about, Not really, man. I mean, I don't know. I really liked all the questions you asked.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else you want to ask that came up along the way.
I mean, not super. I feel like I had so much fun, man, to be honest with you. I had a great
like,
time.
what, 2 hours? It was pretty long.
Where are we at? Yeah, 2 hours-ish? Hour and 40 or 5 or something like that?
Yeah, no, it was good, man. I think it was really cool because I know a lot of the interviews that I do, they don't touch on all these different, because there's so many different, I think, aspects of my journey that I don't always get to talk about. And I think you were able to kind of hone in on some areas where I don't get to talk about them as much. And
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Well,
cool.
I'm literally just a professional visitor, dude.
Yeah, we should have put some tea on.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
If you come to the studio, you can have as much tea as you want. We have a bowl of tea.
I know, totally.
But yeah, no, like I just professional visitor. Like, honestly, man, like our storytellers is still relatively small,
Yeah.
you know. But like look where I am right now.
Yeah.
I can't even believe it.
But I mean, you're doing it though. Like, I think it's like, to me, storytelling. I think everything we do is about storytelling, and just like I said, there wasn't people doing this stuff when I was growing up, you know, and so I think it's so important, and not even just important. It's so interesting to hear everybody's journey, because we're such diverse people. And our communities are so unique, and everybody's journey is different, right? And there's also so many similarities across different people and their journeys, right? Like some of the struggles and stuff, and you know, the resilience that people have is really cool, and you know, you can relate to a lot of that. And it's just, I don't know, I like hearing other people's stories.
Oh, me too. Like, it almost feels like the reward of this, like, obviously we don't make any money off this or anything, you know, like the reward of it is like, I literally just get an education.
Yeah. Well, and I think, man, it's like, every now and then I come across, and it's funny, a friend of mine last night sent me a link to a document she found while she was researching it. It was a recorded interview of my grandpa talking about like some historical stories from our community, and
Cool.
And like, they didn't have the technology we have, right? And like, there's so many things I wish we could have recorded from, you know, the older generation. And I think this is just, it's going to be one day people are going to be able to look back on and see some of this stuff. And you know, like, even, and you talk about language preservation, like being able to preserve a lot of these things with technology that we didn't get to do. And you know, when I was a kid, like the first Nintendo came out, you know, and we had TV, and there was like 3 channels, you know, like there was no cell phones, or it's just like, so you never see videos of, like, I didn't ever see videos of my grandparents, you know, like all I ever saw was pictures. I had no videos of me as a kid, you know, no videos of my parents.
Yeah.
It's all these just old photographs, and you know, we live in a different time where like I've got thousands of photos of my kid, you know, and I wish we had access to this, you know, type of stuff, because it would be so interesting to see that generation that long ago, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, all we have is photos and stories.
Yeah.
So
the first guest I was ever on our Storytellers was my granny before she passed away.
Yeah.
It's been almost, by the time this comes out, it'll be almost a year. So I'm like comfortable to talk about her again.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I have stories from her and lessons from her that like we never even thought to ask of as kids, you know?
Yeah.
We have it all survived now forever. It's pretty freaking, like that, honestly, like I'm so happy that I did that. And it was like the world's cruddiest, like camera work. We're like like compared to where we are today, like it's so unreal to watch. It almost like, I would do it all over again, just because, like, I bet you feel the same way. Like, I would do it all over again because the journey of like going from, like, we were using Jimbo's like parents' camera, and now we have these super nice ones. Like, just like the story of like getting a little bit better every single time. Like, that's almost more fun.
I think that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, I remember my granny passed away when I was 16 or 17, and my grandpa, I was named after him, so, but he was always kind of like a hero of mine. I never knew him because I was, I think, 1.5 or 2 years old when he passed away, right? So you know, he met me, but I don't remember because I was so small, but I always heard so much about him. And I wish, you know, like, to be able to have it, even just to like, I have like some recordings of his songs and stuff, and it's so interesting to listen, like, to hear his voice and like hear him singing, and I'm like, you know, you're like, man, I wish like you had access to that when, you know, especially now as we're older, or when I was growing up, I was like, man, I would love to like pick his brain about some of these things, you know. And you know, your parents have these crazy stories of their grandparents, and like it's just a whole different world, you know. They grew up in such a different time and had to deal with such a different world than we do. And yeah, I think storytelling is like, that's, to me, storytelling is like what links you back to like your people, right? And that's why it's so important. So,
do you want to dedicate this to anyone?
I will dedicate this, maybe my mom and dad back home, who, you know, I think I was actually chatting with them last night, but they've been huge supporters, and my kids, you know, Natwasis, Zane, Zara, so yeah.
Shout out to mom and dad back home.
The past, the present, and the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Justin, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's a pleasure to hang out. We'll turn the cameras off now.
Yeah.
I suppose. We'll keep hanging, I guess. Yeah.